So we are back, and we are going to kick off our budget conversation with Parks. Mr. Lynch, thank you for being here. I'm going to give you a second to introduce the folks who you brought with you today, but before we get started, I just want to give a shout out to some of the Metro Council members who've also joined us. We have Councilman Bill Pridemore, who is head of the budget process for Metro Council. We also have Council member Larry Hager, who is back there, and we also have Council member Sharon Hurt, who is with us, and I think that's all I see back there. So thank you all for joining us. Really appreciate it. Mr. Lynch, I'm going to let you introduce your folks, but first, let me turn it over to Talia.
Good morning. The Parks Department manages the Parks and Greenways Network for Metro Nashville-Davidson County. They have a current Metro budget of $35.5 million, grants of $579,000, other funding of $3.9 million, and 575 budgeted FTEs. Their FY17 budget request is for $2.9 million. That is 131 positions or roughly 57 FTEs. Okay. Mr. Lynch.
Thank you,
back
Talia.
to you.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm so grateful for this opportunity to talk about the Parks Department with you. With me today is Monique Odom, our Deputy Director for Parks and Recreation, in charge of Finance Administration, among other things, and Tim Nates, our Assistant Director for Facility Development and Planning. With us today are Park Board Member, Chairman George Anderson, as well as our Assistant Directors for Maintenance, Rick Taylor, Revenue Producing, John Holmes, Community Recreation, Sally Davis, Greenways and Open Space, our Assistant Director, Shane Dennison, and our Public Information Officer, Miss Jackie Jones.
Quite a crew. You've got a great team.
And I have to say that. I know people, when you see our department, you see this group, and generally Monique, Tim, and myself, and George. But the assistant directors are quality people, and everyone who works for them, the folks that cut the grass, the people who run our community centers and our golf courses, are dedicated government employees of the highest quality. There's nothing we could do without the support and the expertise that these people provide. So with that, as Talia had listed the amount that we're requesting this year, I think just in a short way, we're talking about seasonal and youth employment. Mayor Berry, we've had this discussion to get our youth involved in the first job experience. I know I can speak personally. My first job was at a playground when I was 16 years old, and people need that first job experience. Learn where to be, how to be, and getting the youth of Nashville involved with parks and other things is a wonderful idea. I applaud your efforts in this regard.
And I will tell you that when I went through and my yellow stickies on your budget, I have 8 that have youth and a star, which is very good for you, by the way.
Well, thank you. One of the areas we're looking in the next year or the following year is to add youth into our maintenance areas. And in particular, I think we're going to have an educational aspect for our maintenance supervisors to make sure that their work environment is wholesome and pleasant.
I'm sure it already is.
It already is for the full-time people, but we need to make sure we improve that for them.
Can I ask a question about that? Paul Haynes was in here and was talking about how many hours the kids would actually be working in his programs for his internship program. What is your assumption around number of weeks and how many hours per week?
For the most part, particularly when you talk about our summer enrichment program, we look to maximum 40 because it's during the season when it's not at night. Now we do observe for seasonal employees, and we are asking for additions during the school year as well, like at our Centennial Sportsplex at the ice arena. It's fewer hours. The time that they work is restricted by regulations, but at the same time, particularly in that bonification request, we feel there's also an increase in revenue that we can derive from hiring the youth. So most of the time during the 8-week summer enrichment program, it's a full-time job.
Got it.
And we feel that seasonal youth is part of our, and mainly for our community centers this year. Other aspects of the modifications that we've added adds to our maintenance division, and that's listed under quality of life. That's actually $1.25 million of our request. The thing that I know you all are aware of, the expanding demands of the downtown parks, the expanding greenway system that we're getting out throughout the entire community. One of the particular aspects of the greenway system has been the boardwalks and things of that nature, aside from the plant life that grows around it. So between the amount of events downtown, the addition of new parks downtown, we added 2 new parks just in the last 18 months downtown. In addition to Riverfront Park, which included Ascend Amphitheater, but also in addition to Cumberland Park with the landing on the East Bank, which was a great addition for downtown activities.
And Tommy, can you talk about that for a second? Because I think when we talk about grass mowing, we talk about trash collection, we talk about those things that are happening downtown with Ascend. Where do you overlap with Public Works? Is there an overlap?
There's an overlap, but it's also, we work together with Public Works, and we're participating with them. I know we work on Demonbreun Street, on the planters. We have our parks downtown. A lot of the trees downtown are taken care of by our landscape group.
Okay.
And we come...
Right.
You do Jubilee Bridge, you still do,
We do the bridge. We have elevators on the walking bridge as well that
Right.
we required recently. But we work with Mr. Macy and his group, and we also cooperate with them from the infrastructure aspect, but they've worked with us on the sidewalk system around Centennial Park as we did the update to the master plan at Centennial. We're participating with them on some of the new initiatives from the infrastructure standpoint.
Right.
So there's a working arrangement we have with them. We've received people into our landscaping that they fund and equipment to work with our staff.
Okay.
So that's a good program where we work together with Public Works and have for several years.
Okay, great.
But one of the additions, again, because of the expansion in downtown, is we're asking for maintenance people and equipment, and that's another big connection for general services and how they provide the equipment to all of the various departments that provide the services. The additional people only are effective with the additional equipment that comes with general services. I've volunteered in the past. I will do it again. If you need us to speak for general services budget, it helps us. It helps Public Works, the fire department, and every other department that uses the fleet.
And because you mentioned downtown, talk a minute about any kind of collaboration you might have with the Downtown Partnership.
We've met with the Downtown Partnership on several occasions. One of the things that we're moving towards is the request for outdoor restrooms. And we work closely with the Downtown Partnership on what's going on in Riverfront Park. We work with them with what's going on, as well as the Convention and Visitors Bureau, with what's going on at Walk of Fame Park. And obviously with Ascend, we do as well. They're working with us. Tom has volunteered a group of emails, so Ascend can do an email blast on days they have concerts, so that the practice of the new groups coming in for the night's concert, the people around will know when that's happening, and he's worked with us to help spread the word that the concerts are happening and that the downtown outdoor amphitheater is open.
Got it.
The maintenance is a very big aspect in our request, and it's to help us not only downtown, but to provide the stewardship needed at all the parks across the county. One of the things I know we had over the years with the expansion of parks and the acquisition of acres of parks, we've gone to a 28-day mowing session during the peak season. One of the reasons we're asking for people is because of the other events. These folks not only cut the grass, they do the trash at the parks when they're cutting the grass. They're also the same people that build all the picnic tables that go around the city at all the picnic areas. And then they help patrol those areas as well. So that's another reason why we're asking for people. And also under maintenance is our custodial request. We've added new community centers, we've added new facilities, and from the safety aspect and the cleanliness aspect and the health aspect, we just felt we needed more custodial services at all of these new facilities.
And tell me, how many new facilities do you have? Just for the viewing audience at home, what does that look like so that they understand how much you've grown?
Well, since the implementation of the 2002 master plan, we've added 7 new regional centers. In the last 8 years, we've added almost 800,000 square feet of new interior surface that we take care of, that we maintain. A lot of folks don't realize we have our own police department. We're a miniature version of Public Works. In that regard, we're a miniature version, and I don't know if we're even a miniature version of General Services when it comes to taking care of the many buildings that we have in these 120 some odd parks we have across the county. When you talk about the community centers and the youth and then these regional centers, which have a 6-day-a-week operation, the demand is high for the cleanliness. With that, as we move to quality of life and some of the modifications that pertain to administration, I'm going to let Monique address those with you.
In the priority area of departmental administration, we are requesting additional staff and resources to improve efficiencies across the department. Those are particularly administrative and operational improvements and investments in staff. And in this priority area, one particular modification or request I'd like to highlight are the staff improvement or requests and resources for the Hadley Tennis Facility. With the opening of the 28th Avenue connector, more people are visiting and coming from west across to North Nashville, and currently the Hadley Regional Center staff are operating that, but with the completion of the replacement of the tennis bubble and the completion of that, which is, I think the project is supposed to be complete January 2017, we will need a staff to operate that as a standalone facility. And so that is one of our requests, and we want to be sure that Hadley is given the same priority as Centennial Park and all of the parks throughout the city. And so we want to make that request. And
Monique, that is almost 100% offset through a revenue.
Yes, I was going to mention that there is a revenue, there's a revenue component with that of $100,000. Yeah.
And I want to reiterate one thing that Monique said. With the 28th Avenue connector has really been a great connection for the West End area and the Jefferson Street area, which really has brought Centennial and Hadley together. And Monique and I discussed this because it kind of puts Rick Taylor, our maintenance guy, on the spot. We expect Hadley to get the same treatment that Centennial. It's his quality of park, it's as important to our system, and even though we still feel Centennial is our central park, it's important for the community to know that Hadley is taken care of to the same level. An additional thing that we're asking for with our modifications heads to public safety. And we're asking for 2 new policemen for our park police. Over the years, as we've expanded, we have not increased the park police, we've actually decreased in number. we've been able to fill the gap by hiring part-time policemen, basically that were retired Metro Police. And one of the assets that we have with our park police now that we didn't have in the past is we have a direct connection with the Metropolitan Police Department. The Captain Chris Taylor, is actually a captain in Metro Police. So the training, the effort of our department is in line with the police department, which is another.
Do they go through the same kind of training?
They go through the same
Park police?
training.
Yeah.
They do. And they're held to the same level of expectation. Now, they're not at the same pay, but they've over the last few years, in particular with the last pay plan, they've received a significant increase, and it works good.
So they go through the academy?
They do.
They do, okay. Got it.
So with that, I mean, I don't know, any other questions that you may have?
I can ask you questions all day, but.
Let me just ask one before she gets
Go ahead.
started.
I've got a lot of yellow sticky notes.
Ascend Amphitheater?
Yes.
Can you speak to your revenue estimates
Well,
down there?
all right, we were
Is that
just.
something people would be really interested in
We
hearing?
were just talking over at the office. Our revenue is $1.8 million ahead of where we were this time last year. That's correct.
So
And
you're going to give me $3 million next year, right?
well, we're increasing our revenue projection for next year as well. But we've actually received almost $538,000 from Ascend on a limited schedule. You know, they only opened up in July.
We didn't estimate it to be the half.
No, we didn't. No, we didn't.
So it's the $400,000 base
Base
payment,
pay.
and then the seat fee, which is $2 per seat or so.
And Ascend has received awards from the design. It's received awards from the entertainment community. It was a wonderful addition to downtown and to just the Nashville music scene. With Centennial and the Parthenon, we're definitely the symbol of Athens of the South. And with the outdoor music that's done at Ascend, that's done at Centennial with Musicians Corner, that's done right out on your front steps here with Live on the Green, we help add into the Music City aspect of Nashville. And one of the things I would mention, I mentioned earlier that we've been following the 2002 Parks and Greenways Master Plan. During this next year, we're in the process of a major update of our Parks and Greenways Master Plan.
Right, let's talk about that for a second,
One of the
because that
things
was
that
gonna be my next
wasn't
question.
totally anticipated in 2002 is the phenomenal growth of Nashville since really the 2010 flood and the response of Nashville to the crisis. But I'll let Tim talk a little bit about, we've hired Hawkins Partner. Gary Hawkins is the main person from Hawkins Partner, and we're working with the Trust for Public Land on an update of the entire plan.
Are there specific questions?
No, I think it's just helpful for the general viewing public to know about what you're doing, what the plan is, and how you guys are moving forward on that.
Sure. So the 2002 master plan that Tommy referenced was really the first comprehensive parks master plan for the city ever. And that plan has now largely been implemented, which is something you don't hear that often with a lot of these plans, and it's now obsolete. So we're updating it, and the new plan will be basically our playbook for the expansion and sustainable growth of the park system over the next decade or so.
Including greenways.
Include Parks and Greenways, correct. So we've really just kicked it off with the design team within the last month. So currently we're gathering data about the department, data about the city, and beginning to analyze all that data. We've had a lot of meetings between the consultants and parks staff, and over the next couple of months we'll begin to have meetings with partner agencies, other metro departments, friends groups, that kind of thing. We will also have a couple of both phone-based and web-based user surveys surveys, and all of that will lead up to sort of the public launch of the plan, which will really kick off in June. And that's when we'll have the first of what will be 3 rounds of public input, and that will be, public meetings, workshops, and open houses. We've been working with Aaron and Mary Beth on coordinating with the other public input.
Aaron and Mary Beth, you guys can wave. They're back in the back.
Making sure that Nashville doesn't have too much public meeting fatigue by the time this year is up. Strong media presence, social media presence, et cetera. So we'll have sort of the first round of that public input in June, another round in October, and another round probably in early January of next year, and that will really be the conclusion of the process, at which time we'll have the final master plan to deliver.
Okay.
Some of the key components they'll be assessing our existing facilities. They'll be looking at parks across the country to see what type of facilities and new additions that we need to bring to Nashville to keep Nashville's park system moving forward. I think with Mr. Reebling and with Talia both being here, some of the questions that when you were on council that they had asked me is, how many community centers should we have? And this is one of those questions that we're wanting them to gauge our city against other cities to see how many community centers we should have and what type they should be. We've been moving to the regional center aspect, which has components of a fitness center.
And how many regional centers?
We have 7 regional centers now. And one of the things that the Parks Department represents with our association with the National Recreation Parks Association is conservation, wellness, and social equity. And I think if you look at the things that you ran on, many of the things you ran on are exactly what we're about.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about that organization for a second, because I think you mentioned that they're coming to Nashville.
Yes,
so let's talk about that.
We are set for the 2021 National Recreation and Parks Association Congress. And with that, in the last couple of years, we had reconnected with the Tennessee Recreation and Parks Association. And some of our employee development that we've requested in this budget pertain to our staff getting more familiar with the NRPA and the TRPA, and even hosting another TRPA conference the year before in 2020.
Oh, interesting.
So that's one of it's one of the associations that has, from a research standpoint, it helps us stay in touch with the trends of the country and the issues that are happening in other cities. One of the forums I'm a member of is the Urban Parks Directors Forum, where as we address issues pertaining to traffic, pertaining to parking, free parking in the parks, one of the biggest issues we're having to address now when you look at some of our major parks like Centennial and Warner is the amount of people that are in Nashville and the amount of people that drive their cars and come to use our facilities. So we get a lot of research and a lot of input from these organizations. It will be a major event in 2021.
8,000 people?
Somewhat to that regard.
That's great.
So having the convention center, having the park right outside by it, having the greenway so close to it, and the Sand Amphitheater right there in the same area, we'll be able to show off a lot of our city and a lot of our park system by doing that.
Well, we probably can't conclude our conversation unless we talk about some of the asks related to golf courses. Because there are a lot.
Well, our golf courses are a major part of what we do on an annual basis. They are the main revenue machine of the department. The systems upgrade for the point of sale is something that's important to the golf course. And we also have some capital requests on down the line pertaining to the golf courses as well. One of the things when you look at the revenue we produce, and I know this was an item when we talked at our last park board meeting because we updated our fees and we still want to provide as good a quality of product at the most reasonable price. But at the same time, when you have golf courses and sailboat marinas and ice rinks. And again, one of the revenue increases that's coming is coming by another ice rink closing in Williamson County, and people be using the rinks here. But the usage at the golf courses, the revenue's up now. The quality of the golf courses that we provide, it's one of the things. Our customer service is great. It's great keeping with customer service, keeping the customers that we have. But the quality of our golf courses and the playability of our golf courses are what's attracting new golfers to our facilities, and we're getting that. So we will eventually have to upgrade some irrigation systems, and we will on down the line have to replace another clubhouse or two as we move into the next 2 or 3 years. So we do have a request pertaining to that.
And I just wanted to add in regard to the golf courses and some of our asks, they appear under departmental administration because most of them have to do with operations of the golf courses. With the increased cost of chemicals that are needed for the courses, we are asking to augment our discretionary spending budget to be able to absorb those costs. So that's basically it.
And then the additional other request for water came about as a result of us removing a low-head dam on Richland Creek and helping improve the water quality on Richland Creek. And there was a consequent increase in our usage of water through the city that required that request.
Okay. Rich?
Yeah, a couple questions. I think going back to the master plan and some capital questions with Tim, I know that's your area primarily, so Tommy. Obviously, new council, and there are lots of requests for parks and open space and land. And I think that it's important that we sort of go through this master plan process. It's really critical, I think, in order to really see what the needs are before we sort of willy-nilly trying to go forward. I mean, thoughts on that? Or, I mean, I'm not, all parks are good parks, but there is obviously some physical limitations that we can do. And so, I mean, the master plan will identify areas of town where there's shortages of public space. That's the purpose of that, right? And really needs to be complete before we really know how to move forward. I mean, it's
correct.
Yeah.
We'll be looking not only at service radii and level of service for park land, but also for specific types of facilities. So Tommy mentioned community centers, for example. What is the threshold that we reach before we build another community center? And we'll probably establish those levels of service for other key facility types. Dog parks, for example, come up a lot. So that may
at least 35 requests pending.
So
There are 35 districts.
Just came up with that number. I don't know how I go.
The one thing I probably need to add, especially for the benefit of all the council people who will watch this and will be asking questions on down the line, every discussion that we've had with council people has been included. We have a high expectation from them, but the one advantage of the new format of doing the budget, strategically planning on purchases of land and strategically looking at next fiscal year and the following fiscal year. If the request is not in this fiscal year that we've talked to council people about, it's either in next year's or the following year.
Right.
And so, we're not necessarily people pleasers, but we do look at it strategically, and we do understand that the expectation of someone that lives in this councilmatic district to have a park, to have a greenway, to potentially have a community center needs to be considered as much as someone who lives in a councilmatic district that has an older park and an older greenway and an older community
So
center.
I'm assuming that as you go through the study, then you're looking at demographic data, you're trying to identify trends for areas where maybe communities are getting smaller and communities are going to anticipate it to grow, and all of those type things are taken into
That's correct, yeah.
consideration?
And anticipate projected changes as well, both in terms
Do
of,
you also anticipate the age
yes.
within those particular districts and whether or not you need to have services for children or adults?
Well, we're
Absolutely.
even on our signs, we're considering using a larger font at certain
child.
That's just for you and me. But I don't know about anybody else. But we did.
All of those things.
I can't see that one that says no dogs allowed anymore. Somehow I just can't see that one. I don't see that one. My eyes won't focus on
I did
that.
not say that.
So, right now, we're building, or have we started construction on Madison, or is it, we're still in the...
We're in design development right now on that, so that'll be ready to bid this summer.
So that's a new community center. The chairman, I brought that up for a specific reason.
Brand new.
See, Chairman Pridemore back there.
But it also includes sort of a redesign of the existing older park as well. So it will provide better service.
And then we have there was a pre-existing commitment for one on Smith Spring Road, which has been sort of delayed because of the money issues, but just to get cut to the chase. But so that's a priority going forward. And I guess what I'm trying to say is that we've got some commitments that we're going to have to fund this year, but a lot of our commitments, I think, really need to wait and see what happens on this master plan, because we bought we bought all the land, bought the Taylor or the Lytle Farm and the property in the southeast, and and I assume the study's going to look at those properties and said, what should we do with those properties? It's part of what
In broad terms.
Right, in broad, in broad terms,
Yeah.
yeah. Should they be just passive, or should they be, greenway? So we're not going to stop greenway construction this year, Shane, but I think we obviously have to look at these issues, what we need to do going forward.
And we've heard the message about strategic acquisition of properties that pertain to short-term and long-term needs, but to do it strategically.
So we continue some greenway work. We got Smith Springs commitment, obviously. Open space is an issue we'll talk about, and then the other kind of big item that we probably ought to go all here is Centennial Park.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Because I know there's some progress being made on the private side, and I thought that's sort of going to be kind of somewhat contingent upon the city putting some money in there on that.
The discussion, as I mentioned earlier, Centennial Park is our central park, and as someone that's worked inside that park for a long time, when you drive down West End and you look at the Parthenon, you have that same beautiful view. Now, we did just have the first phase of Centennial Park with the daylighting of Cockrell Spring, some work done on Lake Watauga on cleaning it up, and it's really expanded the usage of that part of the park with the amount of people that have moved into Midtown. When I grew up in that same very area, I'm glad I now know what area of town I grew up in. It didn't have a name at that time of the city. But Centennial Park, we're working with the Conservancy, which is our friends group, and they're leading the private solicitation. They've talked to critical companies that are very close to us that we have worked with in the past. I'll mention HCA, and we have a commitment from them that has been based on a commitment from the city as well.
And I think that's important to say, that when we talk about those opportunities for private-public partnerships.
We're learning the phrase private.
I know. I just want to make sure I got a chance to
We were
say.
sort of the first ones, really, with the land swap in HCA that did a public-private partnership.
No,
But we're learning that very term. And one other area, and I think I would be misspeaking if I didn't mention this. When you go back to the Mayor's Youth Master Plan that was done in the previous administration, and with our Parks and Greenways Master Plan telling us to look for alternative funds and alternative sources, we're working with the Boys and Girls Club presently on a trial program at both Cleveland and West Park, and you were at Cleveland Park when they received a donation of computer equipment.
Yep.
And this has been a pretty good partnership. It has been well received in both areas, and I know that we will be looking at that as we look at potentially areas changing and staffing changes. We feel we could expand that involvement, and I think that is another important aspect of not competing for resources with these groups, but having someone that shares a similar mission, working in the neighborhoods, and whether it's youth violence, the more we can spend as adults mentoring, tutoring, providing services to the youth, the better off the city will be on down the line as well.
Well, and Tommy, for that purpose, by 2017, I think you've heard me say that my audacious goal is to have 10,000 youth employed, and 3,000 of that needs to come from government, which means a significant part is going to have to come from the parks.
Sometimes you don't have to reinvent the wheel. We can go back to another cooperative arrangement that we used to have with schools, where we had summer playgrounds in schools during the off
We can figure it all out.
So we can figure that out. We'll be glad to work with all the other entities
And we are grateful
involved.
for that. Did you have any more? Anything else?
No, I'm good.
I just want to say thank you. I mean, the parks are a critical component of what make Nashville so special, and all of the hard work that you and your team do, the folks out there who mow the grass. I was out this morning at one of our parks early this morning, and your crew was out there mowing the grass, and they make it look really beautiful and welcoming, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity.